One more time with these things. Now, here's the breadth of my collection of Archer space figures as of November 2019. Went through a huge learning upgrade of information over the past 48 hours in regard specifically to the two female figures there on either side of the quarter, which led to other insights about the rest. Can you spot the originals? I thought I had, and it turned out I was pleasantly mistaken about a couple. The green one here at the end was the first one that I obtained back in the spring, and he was very quickly identified as an original, partly by the patent pending scrawl here on the buttstock of his rifle, also due to the marbled appearance of his plastic. His gun barrel snapped off, but he's an original. And then the second one I obtained is this gentleman here with the ladies on his arms, and he came to me as a Glencoe copy, made in 1991 by Glencoe Models. The indication which confirms it is this small size. Let me see if I can zoom a little bit here. Small sized C in the circle on the back of his neck is copyright. These did not get the patent pending scrawl, but the kind of plastic he's cast in is itself kind of indicative. It's the only physical example I currently have of how the Glencoe figures worked out, and the next ones that I obtained were the other three gentlemen. This one here in pink, the one here in bronze, and the rifle guy at the end. I believe these two, I went back and looked through my purchase records. These two were gimmies with a lot purchased that included this one as well as some Ajax figures with their helmets. It was quite the little splurge. And the vendor hooked me up with this guy here and that dude there, probably because they didn't know what else to do with them. They were not a toy specialist. And then I got in the two females, and we went through the whole rigmarole of trying to figure out if they were vintage or Glencoe copies. And as we'll demonstrate it again here, they don't get even the copyright marking on the back. I'm not going to bother turning the gal around. And you can't use that then as a method to gauge how old they may or may not be. You can only really go with provenance and or gut instinct or a reliable vendor who can ensure in some way that yes, these are vintage pieces. And I am now of the opinion that yes, both of the females are vintage as well. Their plastic is very different than the reissue by Glencoe in the middle, and that's not even really a valid point, because they did a number of different colors and a number of different variations on their pores. But I got to compare. Another collector allowed me to compare pictures of his Glencoe reissue females, and there were striking differences between them, not the least of which was what I would refer to as the quality of the pour. The Glencoes were poured somewhat roughly compared to these two, which are spanking gorgeous, except for a little bit of I guess it's called flashing there, overspill of plastic around her feet, that whatever collector had them, for whatever reason, was careful enough not to have it snap off over the years or trim it off. They were also, the Glencoe reissues were also somewhat sloppily trimmed, an attribute that it turned out another one here shared with it. So I was flabbergasted to discover that yes, the two females are likely vintage as well. The other one that's an easy eyeball catch is this guy here in pink, and it turns out, yes, he's an original as well. And the giveaway is the shape of his hand up there. When Glencoe acquired the original Archer molds, they had to be repaired, and some of the casting details were changed, and in the change that they made to it, there's more of a gap between his thumb and the first finger there on his glove that isn't present here. His plastic is also of the right variety and color for a vintage Archer casting, and I was very, very pleasantly surprised. I'm not going to bother trying to show the text scroll on his device up there, but amazingly his hose is completely intact. He just needs a helmet, and he's as good as it came out of the factory. The other two males here over on the end, the silver guy is of course in the same pose as the green guy, and lo and behold, it turns out he's an original as well. Once again, the easy giveaway is the Pat Penn scrawl there on the back of his rifle, because if I understand correctly, sir, Glencoe used a different font for their reissues, and it turns out that sorry about the focus here, that smaller, bolder font, I believe it is a sans serif bold in a smaller font size, is in keeping with Glencoe's reissues. So it turns out the bronze guy, who also has very somewhat sloppy trimming and some flashing that around his details that the others lack, he's a Glencoe reissue. The silver guy at the end is a vintage piece. I had some doubts about it because his head looks a little bit wider than the green guy's head over here, but it's not apparently a problem for that. All the pieces are going to have very minor little differences to them just based on how they cooled or what time of the day they were pressed or what kind of which variety of plastic they were running through it. So very, very interesting, pleasant, and welcome surprises. All of these are almost surely vintage pieces, except the guy right by the quarter and the guy in bronze. Those are 1991's reissues by Glencoe models. The rest are all vintage Archer pieces, and that dude is so absolutely cool.